All right, we're in. Good morning, everybody at home. If you haven't done so already, if you could please let me know in the chat that you're here. I'm going to quickly take attendance, and then we're going to go over our tasks for today. I noticed on the last day where I was broadcasting from home, something was wrong with my microphone. I usually go back and edit the videos afterwards. If that's the case, if you wouldn't mind letting me know so that the whole video isn't terrible, that would probably be helpful. No one said anything, but the audio was horrible. I could barely hear myself, so if you're in that position, you might want to let me know. I'm happy to fix it. I usually just need to unplug the mic and plug it back in. I guess that's not really relevant for you guys. You're guys going to be watching from home again, but aren't going to be, so. Okay. I know I mention this every time, but if you're supposed to be in the room, but you are attending from home, just make sure that someone is calling in unless you've made prior arrangement with the school. I can't mark you present. I'm not allowed to because you're not physically in the room with me, and the school has to do it. So I do record on here that you're here virtually. Like I record that you're here, but I'm not able to do anything other than that. So are you here? No. Tori, you're here. Alex Boutros, are you here? No. Sarah, yes. Nadina, yes. Okay. Let's get started. Okay, so first of all, a couple housekeeping things. We only have 2 days left in the course. Hooray! For most people, it's a celebration. We're almost done the course. That's great. And then you get a week off. There are 2 instructional support days. Is there 2 or 3? I don't remember. Might be 3. Three instructional support days at the end. Ideally, you will have nothing to do during those days. You should have nothing to do during those days. If I am still in discussions with you regarding your assignments, we may have something to do on those days. But other than that, you probably won't have anything to do, which is ideal. There will be a survey, a course survey for you to complete, and it'll take 5 minutes. So that's, for me, assuming you're done all the assignments, the only thing you need to do during those 3 days. We have a really, really tight report card turnaround time for this course. So they've done things a little bit different because of the way that OUAC works this year, the mark submissions system for universities. there's a hard deadline for marks for any course that has grade 12 students in it. This course has grade 12 students in it. So I have to have my marks in on the Wednesday. That's the last day at the end of the school day. There's no extensions. They have to be in, and they go directly to OUAC at the end of the day. So sometimes there have been other quads where I've had some flexibility. I can adjust your mark or whatever. But if you're going to dump a load of assignments on me on the last day, it's just not happening, guys. I won't be able to get it done and update your report card mark within that timeline. So please don't have an expectation that you're going to somehow cram all this stuff in the last couple of days of class, okay? If you've got a ton of stuff, you should be in already conferencing with me on a timeline for each of those things and how you're going to get that in. But please don't have the expectation that you owe me 3 things and you're going to dump them on me on the last day and still get this credit. It isn't happening. So I don't want to rain on anybody's parade, but some people are in that position. So please don't have that idea. We're going to set a timeline together if you're in a position that you owe me stuff, and you have to abide by the timeline that we agree upon together. Okay, so it's not like, oh, I didn't make it, I'll just give them to you on the last day. It isn't going to work like that. So again, most people aren't in that position, so I'm not trying to, rain on anybody's parade in particular here, but just keep in mind that if you are in that position, we're going to negotiate timelines together, and then you have to abide by the timelines that we negotiate together. Otherwise, you're not going to get the credit for this course. So please just make sure you actually are contacting. Most people have contacted me, and we've set timelines. Some people are a little bit over in their timeline, but they have contacted me for the most part. If you haven't, if you're over your timeline, contact me so that we can fix that problem, okay? But I do have an expectation that if we set a timeline together, an extension, that you abide by the extension and you don't just say, whatever, I'll just get this in whenever I want. That's not really how it works, okay? So the course is almost done. Today we're going to have a discussion about some evolutionary patterns. This is patterns in macroevolution. So we've previously talked about the idea of patterns of evolution on a micro level, the idea of selective pressures, either pushing things towards an average, stabilizing selection, or pushing it away from the average, or pushing it in both directions, disruptive selection, away from the average. The first half of today, we're going to be looking at broader patterns in evolution. What happens when a species moves to an island? And by moves, I mean like finds itself on an island, migration or whatever. And all of a sudden, there's a whole bunch of potential niches that it can fill. So there's a number of disruptive selective forces working on the species. There's a place for really short beaks and a place for really long beaks. There's a place for really fast runners and a place for webbed feet. That happens, where all of a sudden a number of different features that are part of the gene pool of the species are all favored, going in many different directions. And then we get a process happening called adaptive radiation, where one species can become many species in a fairly short amount of time. Okay, so it's one of those macro patterns of evolution. So anyway, the video right here goes into a little bit more detail on some of the macro patterns in evolution that they cause a lot of evolution to occur in a small amount of time generally. Okay, so there's a few of those. There's a reading from the text. It's chapter 8.3. You only should read the section on adaptive radiation. The rest of that chapter, 8.3, is covered really well in this video, and you're basically just going to be reading the exact same thing from the video after the adaptive radiation portion, so you just skip that, okay? Unless you watch the video and you're like, I have no idea what just happened in that video, in which case the chapter does a pretty good review, but I actually find that the video is a lot better at explaining the concept than the textbook is. So, except they don't cover adaptive radiation very well. So you're only going to read that particular part from the chapter. Add stuff to your evolution vocabulary list. Don't forget to do that stuff as you go, because you want to be in a position where you can just hand it in when you're done when you're done tomorrow. Okay? The idea being that you already have the list complete, right? Not that you're just doing it at the end. I've noticed by far that the students that are compiling it as they go are doing a much, much better job than the students that are attempting to go back and create a list from the end. When you do it at the end, it's a lot more difficult to pick out what were the important terms that we did on any particular day. And oftentimes you'll be throwing terms in there which is like, that doesn't even make sense. It has nothing to do with this unit. It's just like random words basically that you picked out of your textbook. That's not what we're shooting for here, and it doesn't make a very good study aid for you either for the quiz. So again, try to add these as you go. There are a few analysis questions, page 345, numbers 1 to 4, and a little exit quiz. It's mostly on these large patterns in evolution. Okay, it's asking you like what what it gives you an example. It's like, which pattern of evolution is this demonstrating of the macro patterns, okay? And so those, in general, those are patterns that you should know. So that's for the morning. I wanted to mention, tomorrow, some people mentioned to me that this is at the beginning of the quad, way back, that they'd be interested in having a physician come in and talk a little bit about the path to medical school. So my wife is going to come in virtually tomorrow and give a little talk in Learning Block 2 about the pathway in medical school. She's also a lecturer at Mac, for the medical school at Mac. And so I think she's going to talk a little bit about like what medical school is like and some paths that you can take within medicine, if that's something that you're particularly interested in. And then just like a Q&A if you have any questions. Because it's kind of, from the outside, it's kind of an unusual process. It's not a super straightforward process, and there are multiple ways to get into medicine. You don't necessarily have to take the science route, surprisingly enough. I mean, you can get your degree in dance and still go into medicine. There's obviously some makeup work that you have to do there to prep for medical school, but it's not as a straight line path as you might expect for all programs. U of T's program is a little bit more stringent, but it depends on the type of medical school that you're going to go to. So anyways, if you're interested in that at all, I mean, obviously you can just ignore it if you're not interested in that during Learning Block 2 tomorrow. You also have an opportunity to work on the evolution project at that time if you're doing it. It's optional. So again, some people will look at their mark. I'm going to put marks out again today, updated with the plants presentation. If you're looking at that and you're like, oh, I could use a mark boost at the end, you can do it. If you're not interested in doing it, you don't want the mark boost or you don't care, then don't do it. Okay, so it's pretty straightforward that way. Anyway, that's happening tomorrow. In Learning Block 2 of today, the second part is what I personally find to be the most fascinating aspect of the study of evolution, which is our own evolution. And what do we know about human evolution and other species within our genus? So whenever we talk about Homo sapiens, we generally only talk about them as the only group of homos, the only group within our genus. And we are now the only group in our genus. All the other ones went extinct. But what happened to them? When did they exist? When were they living parallel to us as humans at the same time? Not that long ago. It's actually surprising. Not that long ago. Almost into recorded history. We still had parallel branches of our genus coexisting with us. Once we're getting into actual history, recorded history, we're getting around 8,000 BC. At that point, we're not seeing any parallel branches any longer. But if you go just prehistory to that, around the end of the last ice age, we still have, at least Homo Neanderthales is still around. And we're going to discuss a little bit today about like where did they go? What happened to them? What were they like? I personally think this is really fascinating. This is about our own history. What evidence do we have that of previous iterations of our own genetic line? Like what did humans look like 150,000 years ago, a million years ago? Or I shouldn't say humans. What did our ancestors look like? They weren't humans at that time, but which is really fascinating. So initially, I had a little a note to go along with this. And then I went down the YouTube rabbit hole and I started watching some videos and stuff, and I realized that somebody has made a good video for everything that I'm going to cover, and the videos are much more interesting and much better animated than anything I can ever do in the room. So instead of me just talking, I made like a little playlist of human evolution. These are really good videos that cover specific topics within the evolution of humans. This first one, so what you're going to do here, and by the way, if you're like, I don't want to watch these videos, that's fine. It's the information from chapter 8.7 in your textbook. So if you read 8.7, you basically get all the highlights anyway. However, the videos do it in a much more entertaining way, and they also do a really good job of visualizing all of the things that they're talking about, which you don't get from the textbook. So I highly recommend the videos. while you're going through these, you're going to complete this guided question sheet that goes along with it. So for each video, these are like the key ideas, what your takeaway should be from each video. And so if you miss this particular thing, why is it asking me to sign into Google Drive? Anyway, it's there. That's where you find the question sheet. But for each one, it's going to go through and ask you about the key takeaway from each video, or the key takeaways. Sometimes there are a couple. And so you should be able to answer the questions. You should be able to answer them. And if you can't answer them, either go back and have a second look at the video or ask me. I'm happy to talk about these things with you as well. It's really fascinating. Anyway, so it's a playlist. I think there's 5. Yeah, there's 5 videos. It walks you through this idea of first of a species, which is a difficult concept to understand, that there is no really first human. Because it's a gradual change over time for the most part when we're talking about evolving from one species to the next. So there's no place where you can like draw a line and say this is where humans started at this spot. It's a gradual change from a previous species. I mean, technically, there is an event, and which is what you guys talked about the last day in evolution, which is this idea that where you can no longer interbreed between two members of what were one population, right? That's when you have a speciation event. So that did occur, but it occurred probably multiple times in different places. And this isn't something that you can like nail down from the fossil record and say like year 50,000 BC or whatever, like this is the year that it happened. It's not that clear. So it's more important to think of it as a gradual change over time, because that's in truth how this actually happened. So anyway, the video is going to go through that idea and talk a little bit about what those steps look like for humans. The second one here this one is a little bit more general, but it talks about what happens if you go way back. We unfortunately don't have time in this course to talk about the whole tree of life concept for all living things, it's fascinating. We did mention it when we talked about taxonomy, this idea of the tree of life and how things are related to each other through a phylogenetic tree, right? We talked about that way back in the first unit. But you can, in fact, do this. You can go back through the tree with genetic evidence to very early life. And so this takes us through basically an animation of the previous iterations of, well, I guess you can't really call them humans, but our ancestors, okay? And as you go back, obviously the further you go back in time, the more dissimilar our ancestors are from us, because we share a common ancestor with all animals at some point. We share a common ancestor with plants at some point, if you go back far enough. So it basically just shows that path. It's following the human path of evolution as we go back through all of our ancestors. And it is very odd because, yes, we're going to start intersecting with other branches of life. And we don't traditionally think of as our own ancestors, but they are, in fact, our ancestors. And we share genetics with them because of that. Why are we the only ones left? Great question. Okay, there's not necessarily one answer to this question. There are a number of competing theories, but they're pretty good. We have a fair amount of evidence for some of them from the fossil record and from cultural records as well, especially with regards to Homo Neanderthales. But why are we the only ones? What happened to the other guys, and when did they disappear? Really fascinating question. I'm going to bring in, I'll put them across this desk up here. I have skulls for a number of other species from our genus. And so I'm going to lay them out in case you just want to see what the associated ones look like. I also have several from other primate genuses, which are our closest relatives outside of our genus. And so you can see what the similarities are in our skulls, like to a gorilla, for example, or a chimpanzee. They are, in fact, fairly closely related to us, and you can see that from their morphology. I mean, they're obviously very similar. So anyway, I'm going to lay those out so you can see that, and I also have written on them approximately when those species were alive. I'll put out a little thing so you can see like when they were around for each one. Okay. This video here, video number 4, talks a little bit about what happened before recorded history. Okay, so we're going pre-Mesopotamian here, before cuneiform and before like writing in Mesopotamia. So pre-8000 BC, okay? And before any writing or pottery or whatever. We're going way back. So what did human history look like as far as we know? Again, obviously we don't have written evidence. We don't have like stories, which we do have from Mesopotamia. But this is mostly based on fossil record. And, oh, so fascinatingly, archaeological digs at, for example, Neanderthal living spaces, basically is what they are, caves and other living spaces where we have found their tools. What does a Neanderthal arrowhead look like? What is a Neanderthal knife? We have these things. We have these objects that have survived. And again, what did that stuff look like? And then the last part here is just an overview of the idea of human evolution, all the way from, like, basically back to our group of primates. So now we're going back a little bit more general here to primate evolution, and specifically, where did humans branch off and how are we related to all of the extant species of primate? Okay, so that's the last part right here. There's a little EXA quiz that talks about some of the main highlights from these videos. Again, if you did the question sheet, they should be fairly straightforward from the EXA quiz. Add any new stuff to the vocabulary list, and this video right here, actually just the other day, I was on YouTube. You don't have to watch this one, by the way. This one's optional. But a friend of mine, sent me this and was like, "Hey, have you ever like heard of Neanderthal society? You know, like what they lived like. Where did they migrate? You know, where were they present in Europe? What's all the evidence for this? This is an actual documentary. It's a full-length documentary. I think it's like maybe 55 minutes long. So it's optional. You don't have to just sit down and watch this if you're not interested. But I personally am fascinated by this. And it goes through like some actual dig evidence and talks about like, hey, here we are in a Neanderthal cave. What did they do with their dead? You know, we have some evidence for that. How did they treat their dead? Were they cannibals? Did they farm? How did they migrate during the year? How were they differently adapted to the climate than humans were? They're quite different. You may notice that they're usually shown with a big old nose. That's not a coincidence. The nose is there. That's a feature of their skull, believed to be a method for warming air and moisturizing air. If you have a big old nose, you can moisturize and warm the air more as you breathe it in. And they are better adapted for colder climates. They are our northern neighbors, really, in Europe, and they were much better adapted for living during the last ice age, at least physically. Anyway, so this is all fascinating stuff. So if you're really into this, if you're interested in Neanderthals and what evidence we actually have of the way they lived, it's a great documentary. I loved watching this thing. So anyway, that's it. So again, for learning block 1, we're going to talk about these macro patterns in evolution. Learning block 2, there's this human evolution playlist. I'm going to come back at 11:50. You guys want to go for a walk? I'm assuming it's a lovely day today. So I'll be back at 11:15, and we will take attendance for the second time. Then there'll be an opportunity to ask any questions if you guys are unsure of anything. If you are in the position right now that you owe me an important assignment, okay? This is like I need my credit for this course, and I owe you an assignment. You need to do that, okay? Do that first. Get me that assignment. We are going to have the quiz tomorrow. So the only things you have to hand in tomorrow is you need to complete the quiz, and you need to hand in your vocabulary list for this unit. You don't have to do the project, but you do have to complete all of your other summative assignments. So I guess, you have to sort of decide how you want to arrange your time here at this point in the course. But I really highly recommend that you finish your assignments. I wouldn't go into the March break without a very clear plan of how you're going to get everything done, because it's going to fall apart once you're off. I personally don't want to do any work during March break. I'm sure you don't either, because you all deserve a rest, and I know that you all feel that. I'm sure you do. This has been one heck of a ride here, and you guys deserve a break. Try and arrange things so that you can actually enjoy that time, okay? I know most of you have already done everything, so I'm speaking to people that are mostly done. But if you're not, talk to me. Let's get something figured out and make sure you get everything in for the break. Okay, I'm going to stop bothering you and let you get started. Let me know if you need anything. Question?
I'm going to my Nelson and clicking on 8.3, which is where the, like where we have to read.
Yep. You don't have to read it. Oh, yeah, actually you do. Sorry, there's just the one part, yeah. And?
It's just rerouting me to the dashboard instead of taking me to the textbook. I think you gave me the option to fix it, like a thing popped up on the dashboard. And it said if you click the three dots here in the top right here screen, you go on. Is this where you went through? Yeah, it took me there. I clicked on Chrome and it gave me instructions.
If you, sorry, can you tell me, I want to mention this to the people at home too. What do you have to do?
It reroutes you to dashboard and it like a banner comes up at the top and there's instructions.
There is. Okay. So for all you people at home, if you're having login trouble getting into the textbook, apparently, if it redirects you back to the login, is that right?
To the dashboard.
Okay, to the dashboard for your account. There's a banner at the top with instructions to fix it if it's buggy.
I think it's like for cookies and stuff, you have to put cookies on the, like, telling you to clear your cookies. I did that to me the other day.
So you're just like clearing the cache.
Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds like you just have to clear your browser cache. If you don't know how to do that, there, like I said, there's instructions in that banner, or just email me, guys. I can send you the instructions for clearing your cache. It's pretty easy to do. So just let me know if you're getting stuck with the textbook stuff, and we'll get that fixed for you. All right. Good luck. Hey guys, at home, welcome back for the second half. If you would please let me know oh, we're a little bit early here, but when you get in, let me know in the comments if you are present for block 2. Okay, any questions about the content from this morning? About adaptive radiation and convergent and divergent evolution and allopatric and sympatric speciation. It's okay? You guys are cool with that stuff? Okay. Anybody at home? I'll give you a sec. I know there's a slight delay. It's not instant. Okay, if anything comes up, I can answer it. So you guys are working then on the human evolution playlist with a little question sheet that goes along with it. There's a little checkpoint quiz to do when you're done that. If you're done everything and you want to work on the project, you're welcome to do that. I will give me 10 minutes, and I will have an updated mark posted for everybody so you can see where you're at. Okay, if you're at decision-making time, you want to figure out whether you want to invest some time in doing that project or not, 10 minutes. I'm almost done. It would be your average up to this point, not including the evolution stuff that you're about to hand in tomorrow. But yes. No questions? Okay, I'll let you guys get to it then, and I'll get busy and get that out there for you.